All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting of the East Troy School District Board of Education and all other meetings of the board are open to the public in compliance with state statute. Notice of the meeting has been sent to the media and/or has been publicly posted in an attempt to make the citizens of the district aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Then we have the minutes from the March 14th meeting and special meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the March 14th, 2020 regular board meeting and the March 14th, 2022, and March 14th, 2022 special board meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion or changes to the meeting minutes? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public participation. And if anybody would like to speak, if they could sign in also now or afterwards.
We did sign in.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
I have two announcements. The first is, it reads,
Tell us what your name is.
wait, can you hear me now? Oh, Lord. Sorry. Oh, Lord. Okay, thank you. Can everyone hear me now? Yes. I'm sorry? Oh, yes, okay. My name is Michael Dreyer. Thank you. And good evening, everyone. I would like to read an email received from a parent, and I quote, "I find it very insulting. It is negligent and showing a total lack of respect for the symbol of our great nation, our American flag, to be in such poor condition. I repeat, flying a torn and/or worn flag is a sign of disrespect to our country. I reported this issue to the school and received no satisfaction," unquote. And then as a follow-up to this email, we checked the flags flying in front of our schools. The American flags in front of the middle school as well as in front of Prairie View schools are literally ripped at the ends and very worn. Oh, thank you. Now for my next song. Okay, okay, good. And then, okay, so the flags in front of the middle school and Prairie View School are ripped at the ends and very worn. These flags need to be replaced immediately. The old flag should be disposed of at Martin's Hardware Store. Okay, that's the first item. And the second item, again, is good evening, school board members and all attendees. The report on the advancement via individual determination, or referred to as Avid, in our community is now complete. It is time to share the intriguing results with the school board, administration, and the community of East Troy. The information contained in the report will provide valuable insight and useful information as to the future of Avid in our schools. In the interest of transparency and trust, I am requesting Avid to be included on the May 2022 school board agenda so that the findings can be made public and be open for discussion. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike. Anybody else like to speak?
Good evening. Can you hear me? This might be, I'm short. All right. Good evening. Jeremy Sandrowski, for those that don't know me. I'm here tonight to talk about the topic on the agenda concerning Policy 830, use of district facilities, and the possibility of charging fees to East Troy youth clubs or organizations for using school district facilities in the development of club participants. I have been a volunteer coach in a couple of the East Troy community youth clubs for the last 7 years, and both my sons are currently involved in a few of these clubs that use the school district facilities. In my opinion, the benefits these clubs and organizations provide to the community and our students far outweigh any costs associated with their facility use. Organized, well-structured youth sports and ongoing physical activities can provide many benefits for children and adolescents. Positive experiences that sports and an active lifestyle bring play an important role in a young person's life. Some of the benefits that I'll list, this isn't all of them, but these are ones that I think are important, are an increased physical activity and health. Today, young people face many temptations to pretty much lead a lazy lifestyle. Technology used by kids is on the rise, while time spent participating in physical activity is decreasing. Improved mental health. Participating in physical activity has shown to produce a feeling of well-being, reduce stress, and decreases the risk for anxiety and depression, which are two of the most common mental health disorders found in teens. Another benefit is formed social and community bonds. For many kids, playing sports is a great way to make friends, and has been found that some of these friendships developed during this time will last a lifetime. Playing with local youth teams helps build a stronger connection with the community. Kids witness the value of volunteer service firsthand and understand what it means to be a positive community contributor. Improve academic potential. Many young people who participate in youth sports have a strong self-concept and are often goal-driven. They have enhanced concentration, attention, and improved classroom behavior. Young people often bring the discipline and motivation gained through sports to school. Student athletes are far more likely to have strong educational and career goals as well. They learn how to face and overcome challenges. The benefits of youth sports participation extend beyond the field or court. Through playing sports, children can learn to make quick decisions and work as a team. They learn that they have the strength to face adversity and tough experiences in sports such as a difficult loss or a poor performance. It helps them build resilience that lets them know that they can overcome any work and personal hurdles. The ups and downs of youth sports teach kids that if something is too hard for me today, I can still achieve it tomorrow through hard work, practice, and discipline. This kind of confidence extends far beyond the playing field into academics, future employment, and into adulthood. Benefit number 6, which is a close one to me with my job, youth sports keeps kids out of trouble. Participation in youth sports offers kids a distraction from business you would rather not have them involved with and keeps them out of trouble. They are less likely to smoke, vape, or use drugs. And the last benefit is kids have fun. Kids like sports because they're enjoyable to participate in, and they like being around their peers. Now, I'm not involved with every local club, but the couple that I have been and currently am, the registration fee that the clubs collect covers league fees, tournament fees, umpire or referee fees, equipment, and some clubs include a uniform in the fee. The clubs are not collecting money to pad accounts. Whatever's brought into the club is being used to support the kids and the participants. If the board decides tonight to start charging a fee for facility use to practice, the clubs are going to have to increase their fees to participate, and this will most likely lead to some kids not being able to join because parents are not able to afford the fee. Also, most of these kids that are participating in these sports and in these clubs are in 2, some kids are in 3. If the parents of kids need to pay more fees in all the clubs, they may have their kids make the tough decision to give up a sport they enjoy because the parents cannot afford to play for the multiple clubs. These local sports clubs are feeder clubs, and most of these kids are going to be kids that make up the sports team in this high school. These clubs are part of the community, and if the clubs don't exist here in East Troy, the parents are going to find other clubs in other communities. These kids that participate in these clubs play together for years and want to continue to play together in high school. If these kids are going to other communities and making new friends, playing with these people, and these are the people they're going to want to play with in high school, they might elect to opt out and open enroll somewhere else. We should be encouraging more kids to get involved and not to take away the opportunity. As I stated at the beginning, the benefits these clubs and organizations provide to the community and students of this district far outweigh any costs associated with their facility use. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. Anybody else like to speak?
Gene Rosmarineski with the East Troy Area Conservatives, representing the parents of the East Troy School District. Fellow board members, staff, teachers, and fellow parents. I'm here to talk about flags permitted in the school district. The only flags and banners that should be allowed are the U.S. flag, Wisconsin flag, flag for each branch of our military service, veterans flags such as VFW, American Legion, MIA flag, Wisconsin Badger flag, and other UW system flags, Village of East Troy flag, Chamber of Commerce flag, East Troy flags and banners, which would include approved school organizations, extracurricular activities, events such as graduation ceremony, athletics, band, FFA, and so forth. There should be no others such as Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ, Pride, Rainbow, or any other divisive flags and banners. The ban should be included on all school property, but not apply to vehicles in the parking lot, because I think that would be infringement on freedom of speech. Displaying of other flags should require approval of the school board. For example, if the school is studying the Civil War, maybe a Confederate flag would be appropriate. We would like to see the school adopt a flag banner policy. Do not believe that we have one right now. Thank you very much, and I have copies of this in the back by the sign-up in case somebody wants to grab it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gene. Anybody else like to speak?
Wow. How do you lower this? I'll just tilt it down. Okay, I'm here to talk about your possible review and development policy 830, community use of facilities. Echoing some of the stuff, my name is Vanessa Lenz. I have 2 boys in the school district, 1st grade, 5th grade. I just kind of wanted to echo some of the things that Jeremy Swindrowski said, but also if you guys are considering raising fees, to consider the unwritten costs that the clubs put into the fields. I have personal experience. Both my boys are in the SC43 soccer program, and just on Sunday there was a crew of volunteers that were fixing the nets. I know that they fertilize the grass. I know that they're picking up garbage. They're taking care of those fields like it's their lawn, and putting a ton of extra effort in, and I don't know what the equivalent of raising those fees, if the clubs aren't able to do that volunteer work, how much that would cost the district. So if you guys could consider that, and then just also, clubs like this help East Troy compete as far as athletics go, and not having those clubs are going to put us way behind. There's other communities that just have a lot more, and we have a really strong set of parents and volunteer groups that just make these clubs really stand out. We have really good participation. I did basketball and soccer, but like I said, I would just hope that you consider the other aspects, not just the great things that Jeremy said, but the things that the club does that save the district money. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa. Anybody else?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Ruben Burgos, and I have 2 kids in the district, and I want to speak briefly to the Section 830 discussion, item 10. I was reading through that section this afternoon and echoing the parents before me. I think imposing a fee on the clubs would be a misstep. However, I was seeing that there are 3 qualifying rates given to those who would use facilities. And the rates that would apply to my kids, my family, would be A. And it seems like those have been reasonable for a while. But I feel as though East Troy might be missing an opportunity regarding the rates for groups that fall in the B and C categories. I think there's an opportunity here for East Troy to become a destination of sorts. I think our facilities are well maintained. I think we care about what we do here. And, you know, my son played basketball this past season, and it would have been really awesome if we would have been able to have a tournament. Now, granted, I don't know the circumstances that didn't allow a tournament to be held here in East Troy, but I think there might be an opportunity if we are trying to think of ways to develop another revenue stream to help sustain what we do have, to look at opportunities to make East Troy a destination for groups that might fall in the B and C categories. And I know that running and setting up an event is no small task, but I think there might also be an opportunity to get some of the students involved in trying to do that for the high school, for our facilities here. It seemed, I was just reading through a list of programs that are offered in the high school because my daughter's going to be a freshman this coming year, and there are college credit opportunities in different fields, and I know an event easily can take care of marketing, a culinary, events preparation, trying to calculate how much you should charge for something in the first place. I think there might be ways to give the students real world experience, maybe working with someone, whether it's at the faculty at the college or here, to go, okay, we want to try to make East Troy more appealable. We have facilities. What can we possibly do? So I think there might be a chance to do a little bit of out-of-the-box thinking, and I think make our facilities a home to perhaps more groups that may need this type of space. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll move on to the discussion action items. First one is the student representative report. I do not see Sarah here tonight. So we'll move on to the next item, the Trojan Battle Bags update.
That can be tabled until the fall due to the fact we're going to have them come and do a presentation, the students on the Trojan Battle Bags, due to the fact of the spring sports and everything else and just the conflicts. They've asked if they could do it in the fall instead. So we'll table that.
All right. Next item, staffing resignations.
Yeah, I have one before. I think if there's more, please speak up. Building level principals or anybody else. The one before me comes from Krista Israeloth, who is our middle school guidance counselor and dean of students. Her letter states, Dear Dr. Hibner, please accept this letter as notice of my resignation from my position as dean of students and counselor at East Troy Middle School. I have recently received an offer for assistant principal at Burley Elementary in the Elmbrook School District and signed a letter of intent to accept the position for the 2022-2023 school year. Know that this was a difficult decision to make. While I thought that having to make a choice to benefit my family would come easy, I also recognize that the district and community have become like family as well. Ultimately, finding a position closer to home was important and something I needed to do. In full transparency, I want to also acknowledge my concerns for the future of East Troy Community School District. While I'm confident that the team here will continue to do good work for our students and families, I also fear the job security of many and how this will have a direct impact on our students. Given the financial outlook for the years to come, I hope that the district and community will continue to fight the good fight for our students and maintain the quality of staff and education. I can't imagine a better way to invest in a community than to invest in our students through their education. Everyone in this community will benefit from continuing to keep our students in the center. Dr. Hibner, it has been an absolute pleasure being a part of this team. I hope that you are reminded often of the good work that the district continues to do. I will always be grateful for my opportunities here and will continue to speak highly of the district's efforts, practices, the students, the families, and the staff. I want to thank the school board for their work and efforts to advocate for our students. Lastly, my East Troy Middle School family of both students and staff is 1 in a billion, and I have been inspired by each and every one of them to continue to learn and love the work that I do. From the bottom of my heart, thank you sincerely, Krista Isolo. So it's administration's recommendation for the board to approve of Ms. Isolo's resignation to be effective at the end of the school year with great gratitude, and I will say she will be sadly missed by our district.
I will not make that recommendation. It's terrible. I mean, of course, I'll make the recommendation, but she's a great asset to the district, and we're going to miss her. Terrible.
Do we have a second?
I'll second
Yeah.
it.
Okay, any discussion? I'd agree with Steve's comment, though. This is a definite loss for the district. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Staffing recommendations?
We don't have any? Okay. We'll be tabling that. We had plenty of interviews this week, so we will be bringing those forth, I guess, at the meeting.
That's a bad one.
Approval of donations.
We have none at this time.
School Reentry Handbook, Operational Guide for the 22-23 school year.
Yeah, as we know, obviously, we put together an operational guide in March of, 2020, when COVID began. It seems like such a long time ago, and yet it doesn't seem that long ago. And we've stayed within the operational guide up until now, currently. Basically with the focus on the safe return to obviously in-person instruction, and then the continuity of our services and our plan to that. At this time, we want to inform the board that it's our desire, we foresee it occurring, and that is that we will not have the operational guide in place at all for the 22-23 school year. We believe that we should be able to, at this point in time, return back to our policies and referencing back to our school handbooks. So we do not believe that we will be having an operational guide at all that will reference any need for the safe return back to in-person instruction or any type of continuity of service plans. I will say within the guide, if one were to look closely at it, there will be components within the guide that we obviously will carry over into handbooks, and the reason is because they already are language from policies. They already are language from past handbooks, right? It's nothing new. It was stuff that was put into our handbook. So I don't want people thinking all the verbiage goes out due to the fact there's certain verbiage within our handbook that we would keep no matter if the pandemic would or wouldn't have occurred, right? I mean, if you look in the guide, you'll see that we talk greatly about instructional practices. We talk about obviously special education services. There are certain components in there that obviously we're going to continue to do whether or not the pandemic had occurred or not, right? We just brought that language into this guide. But there's other certain things that were brought forth from the pandemic that will continue, at least at this point in time, such as our Rural Virtual Academy, the RVA. That was brought forth during the course of the pandemic time, and we obviously have elected through the board's approval to continue RVA and having that offered to our families for anybody that's interested in full-time virtual learning, that they go through the RVA now, the Rural Virtual Academy. This year we had 3, I believe, students that had signed up and enrolled in RVA. And at this point in time, those 3 families have once again enrolled in RVA for next year, and we have 3 additional students that have shown an interest. Now, I don't say enrolled yet due to the fact they have not been given seats yet, possibly, in RVA, but they have applied through interest, and they'll find out in May for that. So we could have up to 6 students next year taking advantage of RVA, which we're happy that we're able to offer through our district. And again, those students that go through RVA obviously have the capabilities of still participating in East Troy extracurriculars, too. We know that at one point in time during the whole pandemic, we offered virtual live streaming, right? Obviously, much greater in detail in the March of 20, or not March of 20, in the 2020, 2021 school year, and then we made adjustments into the 2021, 2022, but still offered it, but with much less availability, accessibility due to the fact of just how difficult it is to offer both in-person and live streaming at the same time and expecting that of our staff. Now, going into next year, there will still be live streaming. We've invested into it, but obviously, as we stated, it'll only be for those that have a chronic illness, not anything even related to COVID or anything else, a chronic illness, right? A student, a pupil that is out for numerous weeks. Then we have the capability of still providing that pupil live streaming while they're out for numerous weeks, so they're not falling so far behind and they can still be a part of the classroom instruction. So, but that is the only methodology in which we will be providing. If somebody's truly interested in a full-time virtual, they should be applying through RVA, Rural Virtual Academy. So those are some of the components. Obviously, Ready, Set, Go conferences, we implemented during this component in time, during the whole pandemic. We are maintaining that. We have found great success with our Ready, Set, Go conferences. We'll be maintaining our Ready, Set, Go conferences, which we believe in wholeheartedly and like that we're meeting with families and students prior to the school year beginning. So we will be continuing those practices. We'll continue virtual IEP meetings for those parents that need them. Obviously, IEP meetings are a difficult thing for all parents to be at, and it's a large group of people that have to be present in an IEP team. So sometimes now what we have found out through all of this is, you know what, it's just more convenient for somebody to be able to be at that meeting through a virtual. And for the parents especially, that's the reality, and we understand that. So instead of trying to coordinate over and over again a date and a time, we're more than willing to continue with the virtual IEP meeting if needed during that point in time. We'll continue to offer a lot of our mental health services. It's something that I wanted to reference later tonight during my report, and that is one of the grants that we have been provided through us, through the $15 million that Governor Evers provided to all the schools. Not to our school, $15 million, let's get that right, $15 million to all the Wisconsin schools, but we have been designated then an allocated amount. Don't quote me on it, I'll look at that number later in my packet, but I believe it's about $31,000 that can be provided towards assisting in mental health issues and support in our school district. It cannot be used to supplant, it must be used to supplement in addition to what we already are providing. But we'll continue to do those things. We'll continue to partner with Child and Family Therapeutic Systems, CFTS. We'll continue to do that, which we began during the whole COVID process and pandemic. Our school nurse, Janet, and I will be meeting to talk about what other preventative measures we can do on the health side. But obviously, some of the things, the preventative health screenings, the hand sanitizing, the hand washing, all those things that we've done a better job on, I would say, in the last 2.5 years of really promoting, encouraging, we'll continue to do. Obviously, it has a huge side effect, so we will continue to do that. One of the things that we don't know yet, and I will just jump to that, is so what about if somebody tests positive for COVID? We haven't had that discussion yet. So that would be the one thing that we still need to have a discussion on. We will not be doing, at this point in time, again, based upon where we're at, we are not anticipating doing any close contact tracing. Close contact tracing will be done. So the real only question is, well, what if somebody tests positive for COVID? Then what are we going to do based upon what we currently do, or will we not be implementing any of that? That's a discussion that we still have to have. I know Andy's sitting back there. We've talked about it, that, you know, there will be certain mitigation measures from a cleaning aspect that we're going to continue to do, that we've had success with, and we feel that we would continue to do. Obviously, we've invested in the HVAC and the bipolar ionization and all those things, but there's other cleaning procedures that have been done too. And at this point in time, we would continue to do that. We may move away from those even too. Obviously, there's a cost associated to all of that, right? But at this point in time, we would continue to do some of those procedures, but we may slowly move back from some of those too in given time. And then there's certain other little procedures, such as, if you look at the bus transportation. Obviously, we went to assigned seating during the pandemic, and for good reason, right? Especially when we were having to do all the close contact tracing every day. But we're gonna continue with assigned seating. We've looked at that and we've said, look, there's an effectiveness to it. It has nothing to do any longer with the pandemic. I think Andy would tell you, the bus drivers would tell you that there has been a lot less disciplinary issues with student seating on the bus in advance. So it may have originated from the close contact tracing being needed on transportation, but now we're just going to continue it because of effectiveness of it. So those type of things. So in a nutshell, certain things will continue to be carried over, but we do not anticipate at all at this point in time continuing with the operational guide and going back to just school handbooks and policies. That's it at this time. Okay. Any questions?
All right, next item, approval of complete list of teacher contracts for the 22-23 school year.
Just that at last meeting, the formal list of teacher contracts were excluding the two that were originally on the budget reductions, the keyboarding position and the middle school counselor. And so I got back to the office and I realized, the teacher contracts list was approved without them. And should the auditors pull that list, then they might question why two additional contracts were approved that weren't on that list. So just wanted to get the list reapproved, adding back those two positions.
I'll make a motion to approve the list of teacher contracts as included in tonight's packet.
Yep, I'll second the motion. Discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Administration and supervisory contracts per statute 118.246.
Yeah, this always comes usually after we've approved after the board has approved of the staffing and programming budget, which was done at our last board meeting, and then as you just did again tonight, due to the fact we needed to have the most recent and updated teacher contracts and everything. But at the last board meeting, you had approved of, after the approval of the staffing and programming budget, you had also had approved of the teachers and support staff salary increase at a 4.7% due to the fact of the CPI, which is not at the inflationary amount, but it's still at the consumer price index. So at this point in time, every year, we always bring back the administration supervisory contracts following that approval at the next board meeting. So what we are seeking is for the board to approve of administration and supervisory contracts with the 4.7% to the overall budget for these groups.
I'll make a motion to approve the administration and supervisory contracts as presented.
Yeah. Or
I'll
with the
second it.
4.7, the same as the teacher and support staff.
I second it.
Discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. East Troy Summer School course offerings and handbook.
In your packets on page 12, you will see the course offerings handbook that was distributed to all families. Registration opened this morning at 6 a.m. And will go through April 24th. And I have an update on enrollment as of 4 o'clock this afternoon. So, as was explained, due to staffing shortages, we have very limited offerings at all levels. So we communicated with families that we anticipate that those courses will fill pretty quickly. So first come, first serve for registration, and we are still continuing to encourage any family that's considering it to get registration in. Currently at Little Prairie, there are 8 elementary offerings with a total of 19 sections. As of 4 o'clock this afternoon, 2 of those sections were already full, and 13 of them are over halfway full with the number of seats available. Typically for exploratory classes, we have 20, and when we're able to offer a support class, we have 15 seats available. If you remember, we did not have enough staff to offer support classes at elementary, but we do have support running in reading and math at the middle school. At Prairie View, we have 10 offerings with a total of 23 sections. 2 of those sections are currently filled, and 8 of those sections have over half the seats already claimed. And at the middle school, there are also 10 offerings. Currently, there's only a handful of enrollments at the middle school. As far as high school registration, that does not happen through Skyward during this window. That happens through the school as a part of credit recovery and for credit for next year. So I will be able to report on that as we get, later in the school year. So that's where we are with enrollment. You can see the guidebook has really followed how we've done it in the past with course descriptions, information on transportation and such. So if there's any questions, I can take them now. Otherwise, I just wanted to provide you with an update to see where we are.
Any questions? All right, thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Policy 446, student interviews and searches.
This is the final reading. We've now gone through it a few times. We've had our school attorney, Ms. Lewis, look at it and offer feedback and assistance. We've had building level administrators, non-administrators looking at it, and our school resource officer, Aaron Hackett, look at it. So one of the things that we've done is we are looking to expand our current policy of 446, which really focused on student searches in the past. And we've added now student interviews and searches due to the fact we wanted to provide more guidance to people to understand, so there wasn't as many discussions or questions in regards to when a building level administrator can interview a child or talk to a child. So what we've broken it down to, as you can see, is let me just read the first 2 paragraphs. I won't go through everything, but the Board of Education seeks to maintain a climate in the schools which is conducive to learning and protective of the safety and welfare of staff and students. To achieve this goal, it may be necessary for school personnel to search the person and or the personal property of the student and to seize any property deemed injurious or detrimental to the safety and welfare of students and staff. The board recognizes that cooperation with law enforcement agencies is essential for the protection of students, maintaining a safe environment in our schools, and for safeguarding school property. At this time, the board recognizes its primary responsibility for the education of students and to parents or legal guardians for the welfare of students while they are in the care of the district. And the major things that this policy focuses on, I won't go through every single action item by any means, but 1, interviews by school administrators. So what does that mean if a school administrator is interviewing a student, right? Obviously a lot different for students and our staff. We have our policies already for staff interviews and what staff is entitled to. The second part is law enforcement officers' involvement in interviews. There are times in which law enforcement needs to be involved in the interview. So what is their role, what's their responsibility, and then what becomes our role due to the fact as a school district. Third, searches conducted by school personnel. So obviously what can we search, to the scope of the search and so on, and the reasonableness is the key, obviously, right? Not the probable cause, but reasonableness from our perspective. The fourth, search of district property, such as obviously school lockers, which is very clearly delineated that school lockers are the property of the school district, not the individual. 5, locker searches, canine searches, vehicle searches, breathalyzers, all things that have been done in the past, but things that we wanted to verify and provide more clarity to. Seizure of items, so if something were to be now seized through the search, search and seizure by law enforcement officers, and then custody and or arrest. So much more in detail than our previous policy, and we wanted to provide that more detail. Not to get into the weeds of everything, but we definitely wanted to provide more clarity, so if people were questioning why a principal has a right to be interviewing a child, this clearly delineates why we have that right. So we're looking for a motion and approval tonight on it. Shayna is looking at two additional questions that we have that she's going to follow up on in regards to just providing possibly a little more clarity on a couple language items, but they're very minor.
I'll make a motion to approve policy 446, student interviews and searches.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Is there a chance we're going to need to bring this back if language changes? I mean,
I
is it
don't-
worth
yeah.
waiting on?
Good question. I don't believe so, due to the fact that two questions are really basic. So she's just looking at whether or not we want to keep basically a word or two. So I don't believe, it won't change the content of this at all.
Any other questions? All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. East Troy School District strategic planning.
Yeah, this is just purely informational. It's an update. We're in the process of obviously working through the strategic planning. And the strategic planning is right, it's a process. So obviously, with the new election and the board members coming on, sometime in May or June, we will be having a board workshop retreat. And that obviously will be a big part of the strategic planning, as the board will probably be doing some sort of, we believe, a reflection activity, possibly with Wisconsin Association of School Board representative even coming and leading that, to help give guidance to where there's agreement, disagreement, and in regards to current policies, current practices, and then using that information along with our staff survey feedback that we now have done. And then obviously, by that point in time, probably utilizing the family satisfaction survey that will be done at that point in time, and looking at all three parts towards determining, okay, does this preliminary idea of what we have in place for the strategic plan, does that even align? And what doesn't align? Like, are there certain key pillars that we're totally missing that should be more a part of the strategic plan than what we originally were maybe assuming in the draft, if you want to call for a topic of discussion. And then from there, obviously will come further discussion, right? Then do we open up doing not only a family survey, but then do we open it up to a community survey and those type of things. So it's going to be a process. It's going to be a process from a standpoint, we plan on bringing together certain large components of various teachers and support staff from within our buildings at various grade levels, and doing a retreat, and having a retreat on our end of talking about, you know, the drafted pillars to, is this even meeting our needs based upon the information that we're getting back on the surveys? And then, you know, what do they believe should be the actionable steps rather than the ones we have written down? These are just, at this point in time, a reference point to have good dialogue. So it's not just a blank statement, right? And then we have to work off of that. So the whole idea in the end is all the stakeholders have been somewhat involved, right, in the development of the strategic plan in one way or another. Right now, if you were to ask, so what are some of the preliminary pillars that the East Troy Community School District would be looking at? I would say these preliminary pillars that are going to be used for discussion towards determining whether or not is it the right pillar, is it the right focus, are these the right actions, would be such as pillar number 1. At this point in time, it would be creating conditions for a full-fledged learning agency that truly represents that learning is different here. These would include the following, so some of the things that would be under these conditions: adjusting language to focus on supporting learning and continuous improvement rather than grading and or sorting students. Re-examining and altering assessment practices to reflect a learner-empowered environment, recognizing the importance of feedback practices and implementing each of these feedback practices into our daily work, supporting and implementing self-reflection as part of our assessment and feedback practices, continuing to expand upon student programming and opportunities based on the student interests of their pathways, not of our pathways, of their pathways. Ensuring the fidelity of our current policies, which is Policy 110, which is our educational philosophy policy, Policy 112, which is our personalized learning policy, 345.1 and 346.1, which are our assessment policies, all updated policies too, by the way, not policies that have not been revisited, that are fairly new policies. And then the final one, monitoring student achievement and growth to inform our instruction, to identify gaps in our curriculum, and to address patterns and performance as it relates to our subgroups, with a heavy emphasis on targeted groups. And again, let's make sure I'm not misquoted on that term, targeted groups. Target groups comes from our forward exam in the 4 primary areas that they look at in regards to our standardized score and the reporting out, right? And one was on achievement and growth, or one's on achievement, one's on growth. A primary one is on target group, which is the bottom 25% of students in that grade level, right? And we've said that we've noticed that bottom 25% in our target group is making growth. So people who say they're not making growth are wrong. They're making growth. They're actually making better growth than some of our kids that aren't in that target group. The problem is they're not making growth at a rate that'll ever get them up to probably grade level achievement. They have to have better, they have to have more significant growth to get back to grade level achievement. So when we're looking at achievement and that 25% so far away from achievement, yes, but it's the growth. Now, they're growing, and they're growing greater than some of the kids aren't in that group again, but they're not growing at a rate that we need to get them back to grade level achievement. So that's a portion of the target group we have to look at. And that target group is a variety of different subgroups. We have looked at it though, and there is a certain percentage of that target group that are students that are receiving special education services. So we have to look at it then from a lens of what are we doing on the special education services side to increase our growth more for students to get them to that grade level. So then we're talking about special education services, pupil services, and those type of things. And what are we doing at tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, not just at our tier 1 general curriculum. So those are the things that we know we have to work on and we're looking at. And then we have a list of, and I'm not going to go into all this, key performance indicators for that pillar, right? What good does it do to do a bunch of actions if you're not really monitoring those actions, right? And so we have a bunch of key performance indicators that would get reported out to the board by each building level administrator and by district personnel in regards to here's what we said would be the key performance indicators of how we're going to gauge whether or not are we meeting this. And we will share, like, here's our baseline now. Like, hey, we got a baseline on all these areas. And then we will report out however often the board wants on every one of those indicators. And every building will do that. Every building. So we can see how each building is doing in regards to those indicators. Some very qualitative and some very quantitative performance indicators. And then another pillar that we have, again, these are just rough pillars, but cultivate a healthy culture that supports the district's ability to attract and retain professional staff by focusing on culture drivers, working conditions, staff well-being, staff engagement, and professional growth. Again, we have a bunch of key performance indicators that would be under there that we would monitor whether or not, how are we doing on all of those. One of those indicators we just did, right? We just did a staff survey 2 months ago. And it was a staff, not a teacher, but we broke it down per building, administrator supervisors. We broke it down to a staff member that's in their first through the 10th year, and those that have been here 11 or plus years more, because we want to look, is there a huge significant difference in how people are providing that feedback for people who have only been here a few years to people who have been here 25 years? Are they viewing the district differently? That would be another pillar. The final 2 pillars would be, at this point in time, we're saying we think we should possibly discuss something like this. Maximize the value of our educational institution via families that attend East Troy Community School District as well as the greater East Troy community through increased communication and engagement that fosters pride in our schools. And we thought that that would be a good pillar for us. Some of the ideas that, again, about that is, so what does that mean? Well, increasing stakeholder engagement, first and foremost. How do we increase stakeholder engagement? Internally and externally. How are we sharing the district improvement plan and providing progress updates? I kind of mentioned a thought on that. How are we proclaiming annual and ongoing district celebrations and accomplishments? And how are we also identifying and sharing our district challenges while also making sure we're focusing on solutions towards a great place to learn and a great place to work? That is our kind of key mottos too that we've been really focusing on lately, and that is a great place to learn, a great place to work. Well, what does it take to provide both of those? And then finally, the last one, the last pillar that we feel we're going to need to probably work around, and we haven't really gotten in depth on this one at all, but would be fiscal stewardship. To ensure the district continues to act as a good steward of district resources. And I like the word continues, not begin, continues. Some of the key performance indicators, just really quickly, would probably be, right, these are just me roughly speaking on this one, would probably be like our credit rating, which we already keep as a key performance indicator, our fund balance, which we already talk about as a key performance indicator, short-term debt, which we talk about oftentimes in our indicators, our balanced budget, which we already have in our indicators, utilities, which is an indicator already that we talk about a lot. Our maintenance projects have to become a key performance indicator, and securing proper resources for the other pillars of excellence. So how are we securing resources for those other pillars of excellence to truly become pillars of excellence? So maybe those other pillars of excellence don't require funding, but maybe they do. So we need to talk about how do we secure those resources then? Or are we talking about not securing funding and we're talking about scaling to the proper size? Totally two different thoughts, right? Proper funding or scaling to the proper size. Those are drastically two different avenues. So those are things. We are not looking. The one thing I will say, I would highly discourage when we get through all this process, I hope we don't have 20 pillars. Right? Then I think it's going to become a lot of dust on a hard drive. So I think we need to make sure we identify the correct pillars, whether or not those aren't real, right? Very open for all the feedback from all the stakeholders to determine that, and then determining whether or not what are the key performance indicators, right? Have we not identified key indicators in all the pillars? Like, is there something better to indicate success or lack thereof? And then finally, the administration team needs to get to work, right? And that is, we got to develop the actions, right? The operations of actions of, okay, we got the pillars identified, we got all the key performance indicators identified by all the key stakeholders. Now, what are all the necessary actions to make it to implement, to make it become reality? So, that's the goal, and honestly, that needs to pick up steam, and we need to get moving on it.
Can I make a couple comments regarding that? In your pillars, one of the pillars to maintain the students that we have, attract some of the 270 students that opted out of the district, and to attract students from outside the district that would be willing to come into East Troy. I think that needs to be one of the pillars that we need to focus on. The other thing I'd like to see is, what's our brand? Do we have a brand? Is it youth apprenticeship? Is that our brand? Is it excellence in education? Is that the brand, or is it both of those things? And how do we put that brand out there? We had a very good report recently. I know I emailed you about it. The test scores from the various schools. That should be known throughout the county. Everybody that knows East Troy or lives in Walworth County should know about those scores. And so that communication, is it East Troy News? Do we market it on the radio? Do we put flyers in the mail or whatever to get the word out about the things that are going on in East Troy? Just some thoughts that I had. And the other one I wanted to ask you regarding Gateway and the Dobeck School, if you've had any further success with that.
You already pretty much, you have a communications pillar in there with the community, so that's kind of covered under that one, as far as getting the word out.
Yeah, again, we can make it into a pillar by all means. I didn't go into those key performance indicators. For the communication one, that third pillar that we talked about, internal and external, some of the key performance indicators are in there. Our student enrollment numbers, open enrollment numbers and surveys, family satisfaction survey, annual district and building celebrations, our community partnerships. Those are the indicators to that pillar.
Okay, so how about our successes that you mentioned, the successes of the scores we just got through all the schools being the top educator in all the district here, or the area. How do we get that information out to the public to let them know that East Troy School District is a very fine district? People need to understand that. So what somebody at a restaurant is talking about the East Troy School District, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about that excellent education. Just one of the things, when it's branding the district for what they are. Some school districts are branded not very favorably. East Troy School District needs to be branded very favorably so that it's a go-to place in order to maintain the students you have, attract other students out of the district, and hopefully retrieve some of the students that opted out. It's quite a goal, but it's something that will help maintain the district for years to come.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have a suggestion on it right now, but I don't disagree with anything that you've said at all, Dale. I think branding's important. I think sharing positive information is important. I think when you can have a department doing it, it works a lot easier, I'm gonna be honest, when that's one person's job and responsibility the whole time, right? That's not an excuse. I'm just saying, right? We do get quite a bit of information out there already on the social media, but the issue is a little bit of where I believe, I'm not a communication expert by any means. I know people who are, but we're in a multi-generational of how people are getting their information. So it's like trying to provide that information to multiple generations in whichever fashion they elect to get information, right? So there's no doubt. We want to provide that information to however one wants to receive that information, but that increases your amount of information and platforms that you have to share it out to.
I agree 100%, and it's a situation that anybody in business has to deal with, whether you're selling insurance, advertising your restaurant, your lumber company, or whatever you're doing. There's multiple platforms to get that information out. If we're only doing one social media one, I don't feel that we're getting out. We're not hitting everybody, I don't think we would hit everybody on just social media. So it's a problem that everybody has nowadays. I no doubt about it. I'm not going to argue that, but there may be some low budget alternatives, and there may be some volunteer help that maybe could come in that would be able to do this. Maybe just an article in East Troy News, or maybe some radio time, or whatever it takes to go through various methods to get the word out there to start to build a brand. That's what I'm saying. So Then the other question I had for you is, any luck with the Gateway people on regard to Dobeck School? Any further communication with that?
We have actually. Stacy, would you want to just quickly do an update on that? Thank you.
So we were in communication with Gateway last week in regards to some of their thoughts. The first option is the CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant Program, that we would offer. Mrs. Fuspanchek and Sarah Eckert and myself and Kent toured with some Gateway representatives to look at all of the spaces. They preferred, or they suggested, that we host CNA here in this building. So we're actually looking at a classroom right down the hall that has 3 sinks in it and some sufficient electrical outlets. They thought the access for students would be good too. So if we move forward with CNA, we have a meeting in the future with them. Hopefully that comes to fruition. We're continuing to move forward with that, but it would be here, not at district office. The second option that we're looking at is welding. Maybe offering some welding classes for the community here at night is an idea. The hiccup there was that they need a certain number of welding booths. So we are, Andy's helping us look into that to see what that means for us. That it might be cost prohibitive, but maybe not. So we're going
Is
to
that something
continue.
you can charge for if the community comes in and charge, even if you, I mean, you got a CNC machine, you got people that know how to run a CNC, you got welding machines, anything that would maybe bring in some revenue from
Yeah.
the, the various businesses around that maybe want to update the skills of their employees would come to East Troy to update their skills, and it'd be a revenue path for.
Yeah, perhaps for revenue, we're looking at it that Gateway would use our space, so it wouldn't necessarily be a huge revenue builder for us, more of a partnership idea,
Okay.
where, access to technical college curriculum within your community. And then the last part is potentially using district office for some, it's called Associate of Arts or Associate of Science degree coursework. So that they are under some new leadership in the next coming year here. So we're waiting for that to kind of roll over. Their president resigned or retired. So when they get that position filled, we will continue our discussions.
Because if you can expand their content and expand your availability of those type of classes, you can attract more people, more students to come in. It's a very important part of, survival. Really.
Yes, I think it's important to remember that every time we partner with Gateway, it's a beautiful partnership, but there is a cost associated with that. So every course that students take, we have to pay that tuition for them. So it really is a big picture partnership, because there is actually more cost for us when we do that. But like you're talking about, Dale, does that mean that people transfer here? Is it kind of
Right.
a whole package idea versus just the coursework itself?
And then maybe, they could rent the space, and it doesn't, so that there's some give and take a little bit, so that in the end, it's a net positive, a net revenue positive for the district.
Or just maintaining our students, due to the fact that the rationale behind the CNA isn't, well, we think CNA would be good. We did we looked at their career pathways of what kids have said they're interested in through Zello. And through Zello, they've told us that they would prefer, we know how many students are interested in the possibility of a career in CNA. So based upon that, we know we have an interest in our student body, which then we already know, then we're meeting their needs for their career development, right? We're not just, throwing out ideas. These are aligned to what our kids have told us that they're interested in for a possible career too, not just an elective course to explore. They're past exploratory. Exploratory is in a different way, right? Awareness, career exploratory, career development. We're talking about development So that's the other positive. And when Stacy's talking about the community partnership with the welding too and all that, with Gateway, there's still a cost, right, associated? The real benefit here is we're trying to form a partnership with our local businesses, right, and surrounding businesses that we're helping them with skills that are needed for the future welder, right? And it would be probably an after-school program for either their current employees or for our students to become maybe possibly employees.
Got that 100%, and you got the youth apprenticeship program here that is probably second to none on the whole district. So if you can build on that, and you talk maybe to some local employees, but maybe you could get some people that would come from a national company. If it got good enough in that, I think that you could expand that far if you, like this other gentleman said, think out of the box. I think there's some good possibilities there, you know, so
Just so
nothing
I'm-
is, nothing out, so if you put the effort in, I'm sure that something will come out.
Just so I'm clear, Stacy, they're not looking to rent our space, though. It's a partnership in which they provide the instructors, and we cover the cost for our high school students to take those college courses. I just want to make sure I'm connecting all the dots correctly.
Yes, that is exactly correct for CNA, and that is the one that we feel like we have the most traction on. I mean, I don't really want to speak to the other two. Those are kind of spaghetti
Yes,
on
I
the
agree.
wall, if you will. We haven't made much traction with that. CNA, we feel like we can bring to
CNA
fruition.
is the most doable one for next school year.
Great. Thank you.
Great place to start. Well, as far as a retreat or whatever we're gonna do, we should probably start discussing that soon, at least get it on the calendar, so
Yeah, I
schedules
thought-
will start filling up fast.
I thought we would do that at the next school board
Okay,
meeting, Ted.
all right. All right, next item, professional staff employment, contract renewal, non-renewal.
I'll go into executive session.
All right, reports, Dr. Hibner?
Yeah, sorry. Got a few items tonight, so. First and foremost, I just want to thank, and I know Bob's been gone a while, Bob Dignan, but I wanted to thank him for his years of service, due to the fact, obviously, his was one of the open seats. So I just publicly wanted to thank Bob. Bob, I truly hope that you're watching, but if you're not, I totally understand that too. But I wanted to thank him for all of his years of service and time, due to the fact it goes well beyond just what, as you guys all know, being at board meetings. It's well beyond that. And then I also wanted to thank the person way down at the end there, Tony. And that is, thank you so much for stepping in and putting yourself forward and asking the board to consider you for the replacement for Bob for this last month and a half, for being at our board meetings and any special meeting, and everything else. I know that took time and effort away from work and family and everything else, but truly appreciate your willingness and the expertise you brought from your past board experiences to all of our discussions. So thank you so much for that. With that, I also want to recognize all the candidates that ran for this last election. Obviously, we had other ones in the primary that I've already acknowledged, but I want to thank Kevin Bong for running, Adam Lamar, Adam Wickowitz, and Ted Zess. Thank you for all of you guys for showing your interest in the school board candidacy. As I said to each one of you when I met with you, and I've said it publicly, and that is well before the election results were even done, I had stated to all four of you that I hope, no matter what the results, that everybody would stay actively engaged in the school and continue to stay engaged. There's committees, there's other things that can be done. The more people that we have engaged in the school system, the better. The more people that ask questions, the better. I truly believe that. So I just appreciate everybody showing an interest in running, but I really, really hope that everybody continues to stay engaged in the school system. With that, I also wanted to congratulate Adam Wickowitz, and Adam's here, and I wanted to congratulate Ted on your school board seats. And I know at our next school board meeting, we'll be swearing both of you in. But congratulations, and look forward to serving under the full board's direction and continuing to hopefully continue to move the district forward. So congratulations, and congratulations, Adam. With that, a couple other items that I have on here, and I wanted to discuss one of the items. I want to discuss them all, and that is the third topic is clarification regarding the program Avid. I've heard a lot about Avid in the last, I don't know, weeks, months, and I know it has different meanings to different people, it seems like, and Mike had asked for the board to consider to put it on the May board agenda, which I respect and appreciate, and obviously you guys have every opportunity to talk about that tonight, of whether or not we feel the need to put it on. If we do, great. I welcome, and I do really mean this, I brought it up before, I've said it before, and that is I welcome to have a meeting to discuss whatever questions and concerns there are over Avid, because I'm unclear about maybe what some of them are. So I would welcome that dialogue and discussion, and I would welcome to have, I would invite the other appropriate people. There are a lot more people in this district much more knowledgeable about Avid than me. First one to acknowledge. So I'd welcome them to be a part of listening to those questions, because they may be able to answer them a lot more succinctly and thoroughly than I could. So the answers are being provided, and that, just information correctly is being provided. A couple of things that I go back to always and often is policy, because I think policy is everything. One of the first things I learned very quickly in administration is policy is the lifeline for administration. And policy is what boards are responsible for, and administration is responsible for operations of ensuring those policies. So with that, I go back to one of the, there's so many policies, right? One not being more important than another, but one of the big ones I think is, I do think is very important, is 161, which is school board member authority and responsibilities. And within that, the designers of this policy, which was back in 1999, I see, well written, well before my time. School board members should honor the high responsibility which membership demands, right? By thinking always in terms of children first, by understanding that the basic function of school board member is policy making and not administrative, and by accepting the responsibility of learning to discriminate intelligently between these two functions. By accepting the responsibility along with fellow board members of seeing that the maximum of facilities and resources are always being provided for the proper functioning of the schools. By refusing to play politics in either the traditional partisan or in any petty sense, and by representing at all times the entire school community. I go on, it talks about a school board member should respect, right, obviously his or her fellow members and what that means, and what the role in maintaining desirable relationships are between a school board member and a district administrator, and blah, 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 blah. I think all that's really, really important. Where I'm going with that is, I think the reason I bring that up is one of the huge aspects of that is, right, providing the proper resources for the functioning of schools. It's a huge component. Now, that can be debated about what are the proper resources. It's kind of what I said earlier, if we want to take that to the full extent, right? I said, do we have a different vision in which more funding needs to be provided for our schools, or do we have a different vision in which more scaling needs to happen for our schools? Totally two different avenues. And I am not here right now to give you my impressions. I'd be more than happy to give them in time. But honestly, as a superintendent too, one of my primary aspects is not to always be the one providing the vision. It's to be supporting whatever the vision is of the community. That's the huge aspect. Now, the difficult part is when you get maybe a survey back and 51% want something like this and 49% want something like this, and you go, That's pretty split, almost. I know 5149 is not, but it's pretty split. So then which avenue, right? Trying to figure out which one's the right one, especially if they're that far apart, like scaling back or properly investing towards a higher vision. Totally two different aspects. Where I go with that is, the next policy that I think is really important is the educational philosophy policy, which is 110. And that one has been revised just in April of 2021. So it's just 1 year old, very recent. And this one states some very strong things, right? The Board of Education of East Troy Community School District believes that its school system exists primarily for the educational needs of its constituencies. That each individual who qualifies in accordance with state law and local board policy shall be welcomed into our educational programming, meaning all students. All students. That every learner has an innate ability to learn and will be provided equitable services, practices, and resources. Will be provided equitable services, practices, and resources. What does that mean? There's 3 bullet points to this one. That every learner has access to the educational resources and rigor that they need at the right moment in their education across race, gender, ethnicity, language, disability, sexual orientation, family background, and or family income. Second bullet point, all learners, this is not me, this is a policy. All learners are provided in an integrated system of support, including developmental, academic, behavioral, social, and emotional supports. And the third bullet point, every learner has access to authentic, meaningful learning experiences through community partnerships. That students shall be provided with a rigorous and relevant educational environment and abundant opportunities for learning experiences designed to promote academic and social emotional growth, to deepen understanding of unique identities and worldviews. And then finally, to develop an understanding and appreciation of American democracy, a respect for the person, property, and rights of others, regardless of race, color, or creed, and other factors as outlined in the state or federal law. It goes on in that educational philosophy, which I won't go into because we know this all too well. The next component of that subsection 2 is defining our 6 C's in our district, which we all know very well, and why we feel the 6 C's are so important. I know this, in last April, the group worked very hard on providing definitions to the 6 C's. We had the 6 C's for a while, but we didn't have them clearly defined. So that was a lot of work last year, and I appreciated that. I think it helped our staff, our families, and our students a lot having that defined. So with that being said, where I go with that is, people might be like, okay, so what does all that have to do with Avid? Well, where it has to go with is, Avid is about whether or not does it support those things, right? That's the key question. We should be asking whether or not does it support those policies. If it does not help to support those policies, that's fair game. We should talk about it. We should have open dialogue about it. Does it support 110 and 160? But if it does, then the next question is it affordable? And then if it is, the next question is it as effective as we would want it to be? So basically, right, a return on investment, right? We have to have those dialogues with every program, not just Avid. So those are things that we have to discuss all the time with every single program, and not just programming, with people, with staffing, right? Those are key questions we have to ask all the time. It's not insulting, it's reflective. So I get it for those reasons, Now, there may be other reasons I don't know about. That's what I've been asking. There may be other reasons I don't know about. But those are the reasons in which we oftentimes will look at things, not just Avid, but other things. And we've looked at Avid in that same manner in regards to the components that I just said. I think when it comes to Avid, a few things, and this may not, people may have their strong opinions already, and that's fine. I'd like to know more about it. But Avid just didn't come into existence in the last 2 years or 4 years or 6 years. If you really go back and look at the history of Avid, and again, I welcome anybody here who knows more about Avid to speak up and interject. Please do, of administration. I mean, please, I don't want a full-scale debate here tonight, but of administrators from a standpoint of information, interject. But Avid, really, the brief part I can talk to and know about is, you know, when you look at the history of Avid, Avid really started originating in the 80s and 90s. 80s and 90s, not just in the last 4 or 5 years, or 6 years, right? And it began with, from what I understand, an English classroom teacher back in the early 80s, right? And she was doing this in her classroom. And her major thing back then, from what I've read, people can interject of administrators who might know more than me, but she wanted to make sure that she felt there were gaps, some socioeconomic gaps, but gaps with her students. And she wanted to approach that and said, why can't all my students have success at a high level, high expectation? And with that, she started identifying, though, but what skills do they need to have that success? What skills do they need to have that success? And so it strongly was about skills and about a certain expectation being met, not lowering the expectation, and hopefully closing gaps on various fronts, right? Various fronts, different types of gaps. So she was talking about raising expectations and giving the students support they needed, really, if you want to say it, with best practices towards developing those skills, right? And so the motto is that then you have to believe that what you're saying is, and this doesn't come from Avid, this is what we've always believed. I mean, this is our educational philosophy. All students can learn. Now, I switched that 15 years ago when I got here. I said, we cannot go by a model, all students can learn. All students will learn. Because I said, can allows you to make excuses, right? Oh, Johnny was only as successful as Johnny didn't put in the effort. So we blame Johnny because we blame him for the effort. Or we blame Rosie, or we blame Susie, or we blame Chris, right? We have to not say all students can learn. I'm a firm believer, don't use the word can. All students will learn. Now we're in this together. No more excuses. You're an owner, I'm an owner of your learning. We aren't going to make excuses about this. If you're not learning, we're going to figure out why, but we're in this together. I'm not pointing the finger and you're not pointing the finger. We're in this together. I think that's really important as a community to do too. I think as a community we need to do that. That we don't look at all students can learn. We need to say all students will learn. But now what's that mean? What's that mean to make sure that happens? And from there, why Avid caught our attention 4 years ago, right? We implemented it 4 years ago with ninth grade first as an elective. This is our third year. It'll be fourth year coming up. We implemented it, though, 3 full years ago with only ninth grade. The first time was ninth grade, and we implemented it not systemically. We did not implement this district-wide. We did not implement it into every classroom. We implemented it as an elective in an elective course to take. And we were identifying which kids we felt would be best suited for this and which kids were interested in it by sharing information and then opening it up. And our intent was, if all went well, doing it as an implementation phase. So ninth grade, 10th grade the next year, 11th grade the next year, and then it would be 12th grade next year. So we would have implemented it across the board at each grade level for an elective course. An elective course. Now, when I say that, if you look at some of the terminology in Avid, they talk about like relationships and feedback and self-monitoring and collaboration, communication, critical thinking, inquiry, writing, reading, right? Those are key things, and I'm sure other people go on and on. I just hit on a few. Those are key things that are within Avid that they really promote. Now, with that promotion, I look and I go, we're trying to improve our literacy. We're trying to improve reading and writing. Clearly, we recognize where we need to work on in those areas. We're trying to improve our inquiry. We've talked greatly, it's in our educational policies, about the importance of critical thinking. We've talked greatly about collaboration and communication. It's in our policy again. We've talked greatly about curiosity, which is in our policy, which is huge components of the feedback and self-reflection and honestly empowerment, right? All those things that are within our policy. That's where the discussion of Avid came from, was could this program help us to support those things? Could it help us to support those things? It wasn't the other way around. We had these things identified. We have a policy on the importance of assessments and feedback. And within the assessments is the importance on feedback and self-reflection and self-monitoring, right? Key aspects that we know about a learner. We've said before, and I apologize, I don't mean to be preaching, but we have said before, we are not trying to create good students. We are trying to create good learners. There's a huge difference. Anybody can play the game of school. Now, some choose not to do that, and you see the ones that struggle in school sometimes. We don't want to be about playing the game of school. I don't want kids to play the game. I want them to learn. You're looking at somebody who could play the game really well for a while. I knew how to play the game. I mean, I knew how to get the grades. You know, I mean, especially with the people that would give you extra credit and give you extra points for homework turned in and give you time for being in your class on time. Those are easy points, but they have nothing to do with my learning whatsoever. They didn't show my parents that I was learning. Show my parents I was really playing the game really well at school. And I would grab all those points I could because they helped my average in the end, which I won't even get on averaging. That's a different story that I'll talk about in practice. That's been proven in itself that that's not a good practice. So with all of that being said, where I'm going with is that's why we start looking at Avid. And the whole idea of Avid was, the other reason we looked at it was, we were saying, so if these things, if Avid is to increase feedback and questioning and being more organized and helping kids to have more of a voice in their learning and actually figuring out how to learn, if it's going to create these type of skills, which is going to lead a child to have maybe more self-confidence, maybe more self-worth, better engagement, more motivated, why wouldn't we maybe think about this if we can afford it? Right? If we can afford it. If it's based, and if it's based upon that, right? These are the things that we were believing and acknowledging that it was based upon. And we do believe still. So with that, we also started recognizing, and Amy could speak more to this, and so did Kent and Stacy, and that is that we were having high school kids not necessarily always trying to take some advanced courses because they didn't have those skills. So we said, can this program, by an elective, again, elective, right, not required, elective, that's focusing on these type of skills, could this help us to increase the number of kids who might be willing to take more accelerated coursework? Not necessarily rigorous. I'd like to believe all our classes have rigor, right? But more accelerated coursework. And we recognize, though, that a lot of students possibly that weren't taking accelerated coursework were not necessarily having success because they didn't have these skills. So could we create an elective course that's been in existence for how long, that has a lot of our terminology already from that we acknowledge as best practices? Could we implement that, again, at a 9th, and then a 10th, and then 11th, now ultimately a 12th, to assist 10 to 15 to 20 kids to then possibly give them better opportunities of success at going into an accelerated course or courses by having those skills. Now, so with that, that's kind of how it all originated from and the connection to that. Now, where are we at? We're monitoring the kids that have been in the courses, that have been in the elective course. Are they taking some accelerated courses? And if they're taking them, are they having success in them, right? So we're monitoring that compared to those that possibly were identified that didn't take the course. So we've been monitoring that. We'll continue to monitor that. A big part is that implementation phase of 3 to 5 years, right? And we're finally getting to that edge of that implementation phase that we can actually start to really see whether or not are we getting the effect that we originally desired. And so we can look at that. I can't speak on, I don't know, Mr. Sines, at the middle school, or there was a presentation, I believe, for Avid to 8th graders recently. Am I right on that, Mr. Kleinowski? Yeah. And you want to speak on that quickly?
So in regards to the middle school, what recently took place was just that we had some of the current Avid elective students went over and talked to some students that have been kind of looking at some of the academic middle-ish type kids. Kind of that's what one of the things that Avid kind of came out for is like we have a lot of services for students that struggle. We have a lot of services for students on the high end. What about that forgotten middle? So we had a lot of those students. We brought in or brought over the current Avid elective students who talked about this is kind of what it's about. This is how we practice organization. This is what we do with tutorials where we get into groups and kind of focus on the academics of the tough classes that they're taking, and that's why we try to lean on them and push on students that are in Avid. So they brought over all their materials and kind of talked about this is what it's like, you know, this is the good, this is the tough, this is the fun parts of it, just so that those students can make an informed decision. If students are interested in it, then they fill out a short application, and then there's an interview process with the Avid elective teachers where they kind of go a little bit more in depth about the expectations, and then we bring them in to work through the actual Avid elective class. So that's what the 8th grade process kind of looks like. And the same thing, the students, that's really neat is that over time, one of the things that they do is they do have these things called tutorials that they do every Tuesday and Thursday. And one of the most amazing things is how much practice they get at public speaking. That is embedded within the classroom where they're actually talking to their peers, and what you see the growth in terms of their ability to speak in front of others is pretty amazing, because in classes we don't always get a ton of practice with that, and there's easy ways to get around it. One of the things in Avid is that we really kind of force that within a safe space to really figure it out, and then they're able to go out and do it in front of complete strangers. So that's a little bit about the 8th grade process. Yep.
So in a nutshell, I mean, by all means, I welcome to have it on the next board agenda if we want to talk about more detail, and I can bring costs and everything else to it, what originally it costed to what it costs now after implementation and those type of things. So, but I guess where I go with it is, I think my conclusion on Avid is this: the focal point is to support students by keeping expectations high, while building the confidence through strategies. It's really not about, Avid is not about content. Avid is about strategies to support content so they can have success in other areas of learning of that content. So it's really about strategies. And I've mentioned some of those strategies, and the strategies that we focus on in our classrooms were strategies, that's why we were interested in Avid, that aligned to the strategies that we thought were best pedagogical practices already, that we were focusing on in this district. That's it in a nutshell. Again, I welcome discussion. We had that discussion. One of the discussions that you guys know during our preliminary budget / staffing was, as an impact analysis, was a couple things, right? You know, we looked at a variety of things. Should Avid get expanded? Should Avid stay where it's at a 9, 10, 11? Should we implement the 12th? Staying at just the elective, of course. Should we eliminate Avid, right? That was all impact analysis conversations. Because again, I go back to what I said originally at the beginning of this conversation. Looking at it, not only Avid, but many programs from a standpoint of effectiveness and cost and what's doable and return on investment. That's what we recently just did, and that's why it wasn't on the staff budget reductions, right? But we didn't expand upon it either. We were staying with our original intent, that we were going to go with one elective course, which would now fulfill the high school elective course at each grade level to assist hopefully 10 to 15 students at every single grade level for that. That's it for that one. So I welcome questions on it. I know it's really part of my report, so it's really not a discussion action item by any means, but if there's more questions, or if, when we get to board agenda items, if you guys just say, well, based on that, Chris, it's great dialogue. Sounds like we have questions about it. You know, if a board member wants to recommend putting it on the agenda, I'm more than happy to put it on the agenda, and I'd be more than happy to come with further information of whatever is desired based upon what I did present tonight.
Yeah, I think we need to, this needs to be investigated further. I mean, there's a lot of questions regarding Avid. There's a lot of people that were at the meeting regarding Avid at the Baptist Church. I was one of them myself, and there's a lot of parents there. I mean, the room was packed. So this has to be resolved.
What are the
And,
specific questions, Dale, so we can actually answer them and not,
I'm just
not
saying
address
that, I'm stating that we need to dig down further, and if we need more meeting, we need more.
I don't know what we're digging for. I'm asking you to state specific questions, concerns, things that aren't clear.
Well,
Otherwise, I don't know what will be presented. I don't know that folks will have their
well, the people are worried about CRT, to be honest with you, and that Avid is promoting CRT. So we need to assure that the parents.
Well, I guess on that, Dale, I mean, I'm not going to get in a large-scale discussion tonight. I mean, I'm more than happy to have you guys put it on the agenda. That's not my call. I'll state this. I didn't mention CRT tonight, did I? CRT is not in Avid, not how we're teaching it, and I've never seen it. So if somebody wants to say it is, I'd be more than happy. I would like to see where it is.
Actually, we had a couple.
No, I'm not saying that if somebody's willing to say it, I'm saying I'd like somebody to show me the evidence so I can acknowledge it. Like, where is CRT within Avid? And
that's what we have
not
to
that
show.
I've seen it somewhere else or that I've heard about it somewhere else. I would like to see it, and then I would like to have our instructors present during that discussion so they can share how they're utilizing Avid, and for somebody to show me in our utilization of Avid, where is that? Where is that? And because that's it. I mean, I'm not arguing or fighting. I want to know rather than just comments. I want to see evidence of it, and when there's evidence, I'm always willing to address, talk about it. We'll look into evidence of our district, right? I can't speak of other districts. I can't speak what's going on, but I can speak of our district, and I would want our instructors and our principals to be present for that so they can hear the question. That's why I say I'm more than willing to listen to the questions. I want to hear the questions. I want to hear what is the concern. I want to see the evidence, and then I'll have the right people there so they can address it. I'm probably not the right person, right? The people who are probably the right people there are the instructors and the principals and all that, but I'll definitely be there. But I think those are the dialogues that I'm saying I welcome. But I'm not sure what needs to get addressed until we have that discussion.
Right, I agree. Well, at the meeting, I stood up for the district. I says, I'm very proud of our students. I'm proud of what they've done and everything else. But there are some parents that were countered with, no, you're wrong. CRT is being taught at East Troy. So that needs to be put to bed because there was a room full of parents from East Troy School District.
Also, I just want to go on record, critical race theory is a specific branded curriculum. So if we have concerns of a subject matter or a topic that's discussed, I would appreciate using the actual words and not labeling something with a flashy, trendy term that is actually a branded curriculum that is sold. If someone's concerned about subject matter, by all means. If someone's concerned about a specific topic, by all means. But can we not just brush labels across things that are not actually what we're talking about?
That's why I'm asking for clarification. What our district is doing, and Chris is 100%.
Well, this is a topic about Avid, so you're saying, Dale, you'd like to see that on a board agenda.
Right, and
So probably the May meeting, because April's gonna be busy as it is.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay. I guess before that meeting, if community members, board members, or anybody has specific questions, that'd be the time to get it submitted so we can find answers, so we can discuss them at that
Yes.
meeting.
That's all I would like, is to know the questions, right, and to know them in advance.
Right.
So that can be done. Who's ever got questions on it, get it to administration or board members or to whoever before that meeting, and we can discuss it on the, what is the May meeting? It's the 20th? Can't
May
remember.
meeting, is it the 20th off the top of my head?
No, it's not that late.
All right, let's see here. We got the 9th, maybe? 9th, May 9th.
Okay. All right, anything else on that part?
No, but I think the other part might help to kind of broaden in some of the discussion. So clarification of the East Troy Community School District curriculum. I promise it won't be as long as I just did on Avid. But I do think this will provide maybe some guidance again on providing clarity. I mean, first and foremost, what we're attempting to do, and you heard me just say it, we're attempting to empower students today, right, to succeed in our unpredictable tomorrow. If you really think about it, it's a pretty big statement, right? We're trying to empower our students, right, today to succeed in our unpredictable tomorrow. What does that mean? Well, it means, right, I mean, we aren't trying to teach students something. We're trying to prepare them for anything. That's skills. That's skills. I could have Jeremy, if he was back in high school, remember everything. He probably did. You know, he could remember every fact there was, right? But honestly, that's great. But I'm going to look at him and go, it's probably not helping in an unpredictable tomorrow. What skills did you develop, more importantly? Because those are the skills you're going to have to apply to be able to relearn something and to learn something new. So that's what we're trying to do with the kids, and that's where I'm going with that. So a quote, and you guys know I love quotes, and then I'm going to make some bold statements. Albert Einstein stated, "I never teach my pupils. I only attempt to provide them conditions in which they can learn." Basically what he was saying is training the mind to think, right? Providing the conditions in which they can learn, not teaching the pupils. That's empowerment. That's what we're trying to do in East Troy, providing the conditions to assist them, facilitate them to broaden their learning, but for them to be doing the learning and not memorizing things. There are some things that have to be memorized, I get that. But for the most part, for them to be learning how to learn. They're going to be on their own a majority of their life. They need to know how to learn and how to seek help and how to decipher information and to know what's true and not true. That, and to ask the right questions. So with all that said, where I'm going with it is this. First and foremost, what does East Troy do? This is what we do. All right? I'm on record. I'm right on the camera. I'm willing to say it tonight. What does East Troy do? East Troy does this. Wisconsin Statute 118.012C8 mandates that districts provide an instructional program designed to give pupils at all grade levels an understanding of human relations, in particular regard to Native Americans, Black Americans, and Hispanics. East Troy does 121.021H. It requires that each school board to provide adequate instructional materials, texts, and library services that reflect the cultural diversity and pluralistic nature of American society. We also do 118.012C7, which requires that districts provide an instructional program that will give students an appreciation and understanding of different value systems and cultures. We also recognize that case law in Wisconsin insists that school districts foster respect and appreciation for diversity and must act appropriately to remedy and end any racially hostile environment in our schools. Also, we recognize that districts must continue to use appropriate teaching strategies to reduce racial disparities in academic achievement that is under Title VI of the Federal Civil Rights Act and also Wisconsin Statute 118.13, which seeks to prevent discrimination against students in their access to educational opportunities based on race. That is what we do. Now, our curriculum is available online. It always has been available. Right now, I'm not, obviously, webpage hasn't always been there, but since the time of the webpage, we have been trying to make our curriculum very updated and very much available and accessible. It's not just accessible because people now are interested in the curriculum, right? I mean, the curriculum's always been available to parents and community members. Granted, at one time, it was called hard copy, right? But it no longer is. It's accessible and available online. And it's got the standards, and it's got the learning targets, and it's at every grade level, and it's got every discipline. And it talks about what your child is expected to learn in that grade level. It's there. And we put a lot of time and effort into it. And we're always revisiting it. It's not something that ends, right? As we know, I mean, the curriculum should be a fluid document. It absolutely should be. Learning should be fluid. But that's available. Now, I say this in the greatest respect. I am not trying to be defensive to anybody. I'm really not. I'm just trying to provide clarity to some things that I think are unclear of what people are like, okay, so you say that's what you do, but what about what else you're doing? Well, I'm going on record right now. This is what we do not do in East Troy Community School District. This is what we do not do. We do not teach that one race or sex is inherently superior to another. We do not teach that an individual, by virtue of their race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive. We do not teach that an individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment because of an individual's race or sex. We do not teach that an individual's moral character is necessarily determined by the individual's race or sex. We don't do those things. Now, what are we focusing on besides the things I just said in those statutes that were required and mandated? Is the East Troy Community School District is committed to teaching critical thinking as outlined in our educational philosophy, but also the creativity, collaboration, communication, content, and curiosity by creating conditions that support learner-empowered environments that are personalized by the learner, not to the learner, personalized by the learner. And how do we do that? By providing student voice and choice, mastery of ongoing improvement, and ensuring that we're focusing on a strong purpose and value that is embedded through our practices. All the while recognizing and fully supporting a healthy culture that supports each and every child and promotes kind, caring, and respectful individuals. So in a nutshell, we are trying diligently to make this a great place to learn and a great place to work, while meeting the needs of all of our children and all of our educators. So where I'm closing it is, children must, all children, not some, all children must feel safe, and they must feel connected with other children and adults in a caring, respectful environment. This does not replace, and I've heard this said, and I couldn't disagree more, this does not replace academic learning. It is not a choice. It's not one or the other. And it's not overshadowing our academic learning. I can tell you that our focus on fostering relationships and fostering a respectful environment is not overshadowing our academic learning. I truly am telling you, I believe this wholeheartedly, and I'm not going to go back on this, that it helps the foundation for our academic learning. It helps the foundation for our academic learning. It does not inhibit it. It is not a barrier to it. So I guess I'm asking everybody, I said this as my witnesses to our whole administrative team. Anybody can go back and watch my speech to our staff at the beginning of the year. I said this at the beginning of the year to our staff, and I'll say it now to our community. I believe relationships must come before curriculum, and I believe compassion must come before accountability. It does not mean that I don't believe in accountability. I said it to our staff. You're talking to a person who heavily will hold people accountable, including myself. And it does not mean that I don't believe that curriculum is not important. Oh, yes, it is. I want every child to leave here learning, right? But we have to have relationships, and we have to have compassion. And I would even say more so now than ever before for what our students have been through. So I hope that provides some clarification to the curriculum. I hope it provides clarification to Avid. And honestly, I think you can take both my statements of those 2 points together. And I hope it makes people feel better. I hope it does. Oh, I got another one. Is there any questions on that? My final one is the employee survey. I'm sorry, I think I'm off. Thank you, Justin. I saw you out of my eye. I still got my peripheral. Employee surveys and feedback. I'm not going to go through all of it, but as I said earlier, this is one part of the strategic plan. If people are wondering, why now? Well, I think it's important to get feedback from employees. Now, when I say employee surveys feedback, I am an employee. All right, so I did do the survey, right? Every administrator is a part of this. Every supervisor is a part of this. Every support staff member was a part of this. Every special education interventionist, pupil service person was a part of this. Every teacher was a part of this or had every opportunity to be. And then we looked at the data. We had a great response rate, great. And then we looked at it from a standpoint, okay, so what did all the overall response come to? What did somebody in their first through, we broke it down into different subcategories, right? Somebody who's worked in our district 1 through 10 years, somebody who's worked in our district 11 plus years. What did Little Prairie, EC through 2 teachers say? What did 3-5 teachers say? What did 6-8 teachers say? What did 9-12 teachers say? What did our support staff say? What did our administrators and supervisors say? Right? I'm not going to go through each and every one of these. I think it's important that when we get into the strategic planning that we look at this information very detailed, right? And look at it. But I think there is things that are important to say. I know I kind of alluded to this at the last one, but I'm just going to reiterate a few of them and then talk about a few other ones. I feel good about working in public education. 91, let me state this. This would be a strongly agree or agree. So like when I say I feel, boy, I need my glasses. I feel good about working in public education. 91.55% responded strongly agree or agree. So take it from strongly agree or agree on these responses, okay? When you're hearing the percentage, okay? I look forward to going back to work most days. 80.28% said that. I'm not going to go into all the different subgroups. I find the subgroups interesting, though. I really do. I know the district's goals. 97.89% say they know the district's goals. Now, there's a difference, right? We asked that question. We won't go into all that. There's a difference between knowing them, believing in them, moving on them, actionable, right? All that, but good information to know. Based upon our district goals, I recognize the work we are doing and actions we are taking to meet these goals. Now we're getting a little more into it. Do you not just know them, but do you recognize what we're doing? 85.92% say strongly agree or agree to that. I am able to maintain a healthy work-life balance. 59.86%. It's an important one. I believe my pay is fair for the work I do. 38.03%. I believe the benefits I receive are fair compared to others in this profession. 61.97%. And obviously, that would be an interesting one to look at each subgroup, right? Because subgroups have different things. So, and you're looking at it from your lens of your profession, right? Is it administrative? Is it teacher, support staff, so on. I am generally happy at work, 81.69%. Strongly agree or agree. I am motivated to do my very best at work, 91.55%. I feel personally connected to the people in my work area, 95.07%. Agree or strongly agree. I feel respected and supported by my direct supervisor, 82.39%. Agree or strongly agree. I feel I am appreciated by our students, 83.10%. I feel I'm appreciated by our parents, 70.42%. I feel I'm appreciated by our community, 44.37%. I think that's a big one when we talk about our focus areas. I feel I am appreciated by our community, 44.37%. I am encouraged to collaborate as a member of the team, 90.85%. My work is similar to what I expected when I started working in East Troy Community School District, 60.56%. It's a really important one because I know all too well, right, how many times I'm speaking to people about this will be your new job responsibilities the next year. Well, it might not have been exactly what they intended for when they applied for the job years before. I have considered searching for a different job in the past few months in another school district. 57.04% agree or strongly agree they have. In the past few months, I've considered searching for a different job outside of education. 59.86%. I have actually applied for a different job in the past few months. 15.49% have agreed or strongly agree that they have done that at this point in time. I would recommend working at the East Troy Community School District to others, 61.97%. District leadership, I'm willing to put myself out there. District leadership has communicated the district goals and what is the right work related to student learning. 89.44% say they agree or strongly agree with that. I have the resources I need to effectively carry out my responsibilities. 73.94% agree or strongly agree at this time. The district leadership exhibits transparency regarding the district operations, including strengths and challenges. 58% say they agree or strongly agree at this time. That's something I would like to take greater pride in, and we will work on. The district administrator has the best interests of all stakeholders when making recommendations and/or decisions. Student, staff, board, district, and community. This one does not say district leadership, by the way. This says district administrator. There is only one. And I'm willing to put myself out there. I'd like to see this raised, but it says 71.83% of our staff agree or strongly agree about the best decisions of all stakeholders. So I'd like to increase that, but I can understand probably a little bit of where that comes from. The district administrator has shown a willingness to listen to the other concerns of employees, 67.61%. I believe the district administrator does attempt to make decisions related to the district's mission and district's goals, 89.44%. And then there's other things that we ask about from a standpoint of percentages of the staff in regards to something similar to the district administrator, but at a different level. Not all the things that need to be shared. I thought I needed to put myself out there. If I'm willing to share some of the stuff, then I got to be willing to share my stuff. But from all of this, I think a couple big ones that really go, right, is I'm really happy to see so many people feel good about working in public education. I'm really happy to see that so many people a high percentage are looking forward to working most days. I'm really happy to see that most people feel there's a strong collaboration and that they enjoy working with their peers. I'm really happy to see that most of them feel very supported by their direct supervisor. And I'm really happy that they feel really appreciated about the students, especially, right? Because that's who we work with directly. I'm going to acknowledge, I would really like to see, I feel appreciated by our community. I would like to see that people feel on the certain aspects of what they don't feel resonates to a strong support or respect towards their profession and what they're doing. I'd like to see those things increase. I would like to see those things increase greatly. There was just a recent policy forum, Wisconsin Policy Forum from Wisconsin Policy, neutral basis. It doesn't have the most recent, but education degrees earned at colleges and universities in southeast Wisconsin declined from 2011 to 2019, raising the question of whether there is a sufficient supply of new K-12 teachers to meet the region's teachers' workforce needs. These trends emerge out of data collected by the Higher Educational Regional Alliance and have been analyzed by the Wisconsin Policy Forum. During the 9 years studied, education completions dropped substantially, both in number and as share of all new degrees and certificates awarded. Education completions decreased 12.9% in 2011 to, from 2011 to 2019. That number would be 2,244, and it went to 1,955. They made up 7.3% of all degrees and certificates awarded by HERA institutions in 2019, which was down from 8.7% in 2011. Now, the interesting thing is, moreover, according to the State Department of Public Instruction data, as we all know, student enrollment in Wisconsin public schools has declined because of student population and other things. But it's declined by far at a much slower rate than degree completions. The enrollment drop has gone 1.5% between 2009 and 2019. So between 2011 and 2019, enrollment drops went down 1.5%. But as you just recall, I said that this went down from a standpoint of it decreased 12.9% from people going in to the teaching. So much greater degree of staff shortages than aligning to enrollment decline. In interviews of numerous deans at higher institutions, they attribute the declines in bachelor's and master's completions to several factors, including perceptions of increasing demands and pressure on education professionals, a perceived decrease in public respect for the educator profession, increased politicization and deprofessionalization of the field, ripple effects from the 2008-2009 recession, and the lack of competitive pay compared to professionals with similar education levels in other fields. And this was another thing that I just saw recently in Wisconsin School News. It was in the January-February edition, which said that 48% of teachers, not staff, but teachers, I have a different one on staff, which is even more alarming, who considered changing their jobs in the previous month was at 40, when surveyed in November, it was up from 32% to 48%. So up from 32% in June. So in June, it was at 32% of teachers who considered changing their jobs, and it had gone up to 48% in November, from June to November. Kind of aligns to the percentage of what I stated earlier of our employees who said that they looked for or considered a job. So we're not out of the ordinary. We're not out of the ordinary. So for people to say East Troy problem, it's not an East Troy problem. But I think it's a problem that every district needs to ensure that they're well aware of and concerned about. I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chris. Kathy, have anything else tonight? Amy? And Kate's not here, and I have nothing,
Ted.
so.
Hey, Kathy, I got a couple questions for you.
Wait, before we move on, can I say something about the survey? The 44% of the staff who feels appreciated by the community, I just got to thinking when I heard that, like, if the mirror question was asked to the community, if they appreciate the educators in our district, I mean, it couldn't be that low, could it? I mean, 44% people really feel that way? Is there a disconnect in, I mean, I know 2 failed referendums will go a long way in making people feel that way, but there seems to be more educators feeling unappreciated than I think the community might actually be trying to state. I don't know. I'm not asking a question. It was just a thought that came to mind about that. It's just such a sad number to see. And I just can't imagine our community, only 44% of our community appreciates our educators. I mean, that just can't be. It was just surprising to hear that. Sorry, you can go on.
Okay.
Can you remind me when the survey was sent, or when the results were collected?
I'm sorry,
When did the survey, when was it conducted?
January?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Kathy,
Yeah.
okay. Last time I brought up about self-funding, long-term disability, life insurance. Have you had a chance to look into that?
just looking, I didn't see it in the future items from the last board meeting.
Okay, maybe next time.
But I do remember that I forwarded a question to our insurance reps, and I have not heard back. So
Okay.
I will follow up again to see if that's even a possibility.
Okay.
And then, yes, report on it in the future. Did you have anything else, Dale?
Okay, got another one for you.
Okay.
Actually, I got this kind of idea from Adam. High deductible insurance. If we went with a high deductible insurance
Mm-hmm.
and self-funded let's say, right now their deductible is $4,000. The school district funds the deductible from $4,000 to $10,000 in the event that the employee would need it. What kind of cost savings would we have with a high deductible insurance and by self-funding? It'd be no impact to the employee, so the employee doesn't know the difference. But the district might save a ton of money doing that.
So, we have the two plans right now, and the employee buys up to the higher deductible plan. So would you suggest eliminating that and go down to one plan, and then we supplement? We've looked into all kinds of backfilling high deductible plans before.
How did that work out?
Well, we're not on it. So it worked out with other options being better options whenever we've, again, bid it out. We always look at multiple different plan designs. So, but yes, again, every time we go to bid insurance, every time we are meeting and trying to analyze different, again, situations and plan options. So I can tell you, A, we've looked at it in the past. We haven't gone there. But B, so if you're saying 4,000, that would
Well,
be.
whatever the standard plan is right now, I
Yeah,
think it would.
Yeah, that's the base plan right now. People have to buy up to be on the $1,000 deductible
Right.
instead of the $4,000 deductible. So again, it gets pretty complicated if you're having two plans and what's the backfill on each of them. But yes, we look at that every year. We do different plan designs, different network options. All that gets, whenever we go to bid, we look at different things.
Okay, just curious about that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll move on to policy review and development, policy 830, community use of facilities.
Sure. Let me just make myself a note to follow up again on the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, we're on page 31. Okay, so from a future board item at the last board meeting, I asked Reed Oldenburg, who's our facility use coordinator, to just write down some thoughts to guide the board if you want to put on a future board agenda a policy change at all. Again, we're talking, he's got it 810, but that's a typo. It's policy 830 is our facility use policy. And so, first of all, on page 31, Reed summarized the different groups that we have. We have A groups, B groups, C groups. That's just how it's designated in our policy. And then it tells you again, like that, the definitions of the different groups. And then I'm pulling up here, we have a chart of different spaces and how much they're charged per hour. And so like if you're in the B group, you're charged $10 an hour for a classroom. You're charged $15 an hour for the gymnasium. High school gym number 3 is $20 per hour. So B groups, in general, for any usage, you're gonna be charged per hour. C groups, same thing, but it's double the price of the B groups. So there, a classroom's $20 per hour. Gyms are $30 per hour, so on and so forth. So, but I think the question or the agenda item at the last board meeting was addressing A rates. And should A rates begin to be charged for non-tournament things, so like practices or Girl Scouts hosting a meeting. So those would be the things that we would begin. The question was, should we begin charging for them? So Reed, I think, did a nice job, continues on page 32 and 33. The gist of my summary in my brain after reading it is the costs would get charged to the participants. That's what would happen. There's no magic other way to do it. So if you're a youth club sport, and you're running youth club soccer, you're running youth club basketball, and now you begin to be charged $15 per hour per gym use, you'd obviously have to multiply out how many times you're going to use the gym, how many hours, and divide by how many kids are participating in your club, and just raise your fee by that amount. So that's the question at hand. Like, do we want to start doing that? And I guess I leave it to the board then. So it's not, we didn't put any policy first reading on the agenda tonight. We're in discussion mode. Do you want to bring back a first reading of a policy that does have fees for Group A?
Do we charge-
Remember, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, do we charge for the community for using equipment in the Fab Lab and things like that, like our CNC machine and
Yes.
welders and everything else?
Yes, they have community nights once a month, and then they have a preset project once a month. And both of those have charges, again, appropriate to the machines that are being used and materials that are being used.
Do we
So
have-
that's separate from this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember when we did this policy, 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was right around the time of the referendum, and the discussion was, well, the citizens are paying for these facilities, and if it's a community-based organization and it's students involved, it's really hard to charge for that. So I think that was the philosophy going back. I don't know, I mean, my philosophy hasn't changed on it, but I don't know about the other board members.
I'm not interested in changing the policy or charging additional fees for in-district clubs or sports or usage of facilities, so I'm perfectly fine with the policy as it reads today.
I agree. I think it's just important that the community knows that we are charging, outside groups
Outside.
for it, and that, just like Ted said, I agree, and that's when we did this policy. You've already paid for this structure through your taxes, so if you're involved in the community, your students in the community, groups, Boy Scouts, whatever, no charge, but outside groups definitely charge, and that we're doing our due diligence, that getting money for providing this building to people that have not helped pay for it.
I agree with you on that,
I agree as well. I don't think there's a way to put a price on all the gray area things that benefit all those kids involved in it. So, I mean, if you're looking to raise money, this isn't the place to do it.
And I would hope the community can see the benefit, even if you don't have a student participating in a sport or a club at this time, or even if you never did, right, to see the benefit of students, young people, even adult groups in the community that are, able to participate and benefit in lots of ways that were said by others already today. So we would be, I think, affected very negatively if we had to look to make changes to this.
Okay, I'll leave it as is.
Yep.
Communications announcements.
I have a couple. First off, I'd like to recognize our high school band and choir students that participate in the district solo ensemble. The 107 first place ratings and 18 second place ratings. So congratulations to all of those groups and individuals that either received the first place rating, second place rating, and just participated in it, whether or not they received a rating or not. But a couple of the groups that received an almost perfect score and qualified for state were Jazz Ensemble, Brass Ensemble, Vocal Jazz Ensemble, Caden Fridley for trombone solo and vocal solo, Barbershop Quartet of Caden Fridley, Gavin McLaughlin, Lane Peters, and Gabe Voss, Mary Schreiber for the music theater solo, Delaney Dobke for the music theater solo, and Rob Thomas for the piano solo. Also, it's 2020-21 data, but recently in a publication in the Milwaukee area of all Milwaukee area public high schools, all Milwaukee public area high schools, which would include southeastern area. East Troy High School is ranked 21st for the 2021 school year. It was purely off the forward exam score, the overall accountability score, which we had. So, but great job to our East Troy High School staff and leadership, and to our entire district, because it takes a team effort in so many areas for that to happen. And that again was based upon 2021 data. It just goes to show you how late sometimes it is when things get publicized and publications happen. Obviously, we're in the midst of doing our forward exam and our Aspire testing, ACT testing, all of those things. All that data will be coming out in the coming months for this school year. East Troy High School's yearbook has been recognized for excellence and is featured in the Possibilities book, celebrating the best of the best in yearbook design and coverage. So of the East Troy High School yearbook, they were one of only 342 college, high school, and middle school yearbooks selected from thousands of schools, and only one of 3 schools in Wisconsin that are featured in the book. So I just want to say congratulations and well-deserved to our students that publish the yearbook, and to Ms. Deb Lysing that oversees the entire yearbook. So great job each year to all the students and to Deb. And congratulations on your recognition. And then one final thing, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, and that was, as we know, the pandemic has brought, obviously, student mental health concerns to the forefront. Not that there wasn't student mental health concerns prior to the pandemic, but I think the pandemic has brought a lot of it to the forefront. And we probably are aware, if not, you heard me say earlier tonight that Governor Evers awarded $15 million in grants to schools, and it's not a competitive grant. So it was an allocation grant. It's called Get Kids Ahead Initiative, and it's basically to promote students and staff mental health. At this time, the East Troy Community School District will be receiving $31,937 for that grant. And as I stated earlier, the funds must be used to supplement, not supplant, mental health supports for our students and our staff. And then the final thing I just wanted to state is, I think it's a clear example, right? It's an obvious one, but it's a clear example of, I was just talking to Justin a few weeks ago, and I know Justin's constantly working on this besides my discussion, and we had somebody do an audit about a year plus ago that I really appreciated. The individual reached out to our district who specializes in cybersecurity, and they were willing to do a free audit on our district, and offered a lot of suggestions, said a lot of good things about our district, and offered a lot of good suggestions to the IT department in regards to, here are things that you should continue to think about. I can't tell you the number of articles that are coming out about cybersecurity, and as we all know, in every profession. But I think sometimes people have a tendency of not thinking of education in that world. Let me tell you, we are in that world. We have a significant payroll. We're in that world, and we have a lot of personal information. We're the largest employer in East Troy School District. So I would tell you that we better be very well versed in cybersecurity. The reason I bring that up is we continue to put forth efforts in district cybersecurity, right? Justin is constantly having discussions and dialogue with the IT department. He did this audit, and appreciate the gentleman who reached out and did this free of charge for us, by the way, individual in our East Troy Community School District. I can't thank him enough. But above that, right? So we're always looking at improvements to our cybersecurity. Some things are not cost, but a lot of things are cost in regards to that. Why I bring this up is, it's just one example of many of things that constantly have to be evolving in our district, and how they change from a cost standpoint and a resource standpoint a personnel standpoint in regards to that, right? This is an obvious one, but we could do so many more things about how things are evolving. But people do not think about those things usually in regards to a school district or our operations. So where I bring that up is, right, when we don't receive a revenue increase for 2 years from the state for per pupil funding, I ask that question again. When we have things like this that are constantly evolving and changing, for us to meet necessary needs, and I bring this one up because it's so needed, right? It's so obvious that those are the dilemmas and challenges we face. That costs do increase because operations are ever evolving. They're changing. And so we've tried to restructure. But I mean, I constantly am always asking Justin the key question. Do you have enough people in the IT department? Do you need more in the IT department? What do you need? And that's just personnel, right? That's besides then the necessary structures that are needed. This was just one of many. And I'll tell you, we have not met every recommendation by the individual, right? We've implemented some of them. And honestly, some of the low hanging fruit that we can do that, and it's cheap. The bigger implementations, the higher hanging fruit, that's more costly, those are bigger discussions. Because when I increase his budget for cybersecurity, I have to think about decreasing somebody else's budget. Those are the dilemmas we face. When we do the budget staffing and proposal last month, it's not just a budget structural deficit is not just based upon that we're not getting as much funding as we need. It's based upon that we have other expenses in our district that continually go up or are new that maybe we didn't have 20 years ago. And to operate successfully and efficiently. And the reason I bring that up is I remember always hearing one time, and Justin will appreciate this because he knows I bring it up to him all the time, is we talk about that the darn if you do, darn if you don't approach sometimes, right? And excuse my language, I'll say darn instead, right? But it is so true. You know, if you think back to Y2K, and I'm not an IT specialist, that's the guy who is. But I remember hearing back in that era of Y2K even people saying, see, we put all this time and efforts into everything and we never needed it. Never needed it. Nothing came to fruition. And I remember hearing an IT expert going, isn't that good? And you know what? It probably didn't come to fruition because we all did our due diligence in our due jobs, in our responsibilities. And that's why you can make that statement. But it's funny how people were saying it after the fact, right? Because no effect. But his point was, if we wouldn't have done all that, and then there would have been an effect, a huge effect, they would have said we didn't do our jobs well enough. And I use that now as an example of us. Because oftentimes we get caught saying that we're doing something that we don't need to be doing it until later on it shows maybe that we should have been doing it or doing it even more. And then the people I lead know this about me. I always say, don't expect those same people to be there. The ones that were complaining that you shouldn't have been doing that, they're gone. They won't be around when the things fall apart. Now they'll be silent, but there'll still be accountability to be told. So you better feel really comfortable with what you're deciding to do because you got to be accountable to yourself in the end. That's my point in regards to, I use the cybersecurity as an example. There are so many different line items that were not possibly there 20 years ago that have to be there now. But if the funding's not keeping pace, it's a problem. It's a problem. That's my last stuff. Thank you tonight.
All right, future items for the board. Anybody have anything?
I've got a couple questions for Andy, if you don't mind. Do you know off the top of your head what the remaining LED costs would be for upgrading all the lights to LED?
I sent all of you guys an email today, so I understand you were probably working today, but all that information is in the email.
Oh, it is, okay. The other question I had is that these infrared switches for lights not controlled by software, like in these rooms, do we have all that? Is that something that we could do in the future, or what's the situation?
So,
Do it.
Yeah, I would.
Take the mic.
Or use your coaching voice.
Yeah.
All right, so I can tell you that as we do LED upgrades in our district, those will be installed where it's practical. I mean, there are locations that they're maybe not that practical. Something that I'm just gonna be forward with, but yeah, we will be installing that. But keep in mind that increases our operational costs down the road. So they're expected to save money now, but a standard light switch, a standard commercial grade $10 light switch that just runs right to the lights versus a power pack up in the ceiling, infrared sensors, occupancy sensors, daylight harvesting sensors that will fail. They only have like a 5 to 7 year life expectancy. That now we're gonna have to pay probably labor to replace those items 5 to 7 years from now. I just sometimes struggle with whether or not those items are actually gonna save us that energy and save us those costs. But again, it's something you have to do. There's codes, things like that. So we'll continue to do those things, but sometimes I struggle with installing those, just to be, completely upfront. But I
Yeah.
can assure you that we will be installing those as upgrades happen, so. But
That's-
there's a lot, and I didn't get this on the mic, but there's a lot in that email that I shared with all the board today that covers some of those questions that you've had in some of these previous
Okay.
board meetings. And my intention would be to try to do like a biannual update for all of you, just twice a year then.
Okay.
Good?
Yep.
I think we need to have a discussion of possible referendum questions on our future agenda.
I just got one,
I would agree.
oh, do you want to
Don't know
talk
what
more about that
timing
one?
frame,
Yeah, I don't either, but.
but, yeah.
Do we want to discuss that, or are we just,
What's that against, Tony? I'm sorry.
are we putting that on putting on the agenda, or do we want to discuss that one? Because we might be here all night.
We can't discuss it. It's not agenda item.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not we can't discuss
No,
it
I
tonight,
just
but-
have a statement, since probably my last time to talk. Maybe my last time. Anyway, I just wanted to, all the years of discussions and debates and stuff that we've had up here, you realize that a really good mix of different ideas and personalities is really valuable. And I recently heard someone say this statement, that I know how to take the emotion out of a decision. And it just made me think, like, what I wanted to say was, yeah, but do you know how to put your heart into a decision? And I believe that a mix of both, the head and the heart, is really important. And, East Troy really needs that balance. We say things like we love our community, we love our schools, we love our children, we love all people in the community. That's emotional. And there are things you can't really put a price on, a value on, and I think that's the heart that it comes the closest to putting some kind of value on those things. And that's why I feel it always needs to be part of the decision. So I guess I encourage the board to kind of continue to go that route moving forward. I feel like when that happens, the kids are always the ones who win in the end. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, well said. Thanks, Tony. Anybody have anything else for a future item? Okay. I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session for discussion of professional staff employment, contract renewal, non-renewal, as provided under 19.851B and 19.851C.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote. Steve?
Yes.
Tony?
Yeah.